Hi, this is Muho. I want to continue with the My Teacher's House series, but first of all, if you're watching this from somewhere in New York City or close to New York City and it's still before June 13th in 2019, then you might be interested in the film Zen for Nothing that's gonna show at, I don't know how you pronounce this in English, maybe Thalia Theater, in German it would be Thalia, Thalia Theater, on June 13th at 7 p.m. I'm looking at this on a homepage that's called symphonyspace.org. Anyway, if you Google for Zen for Nothing, Thalia Docs or Symphony Space, you should come across it. Highly recommended. That's a film that was shot at AntiZ around 4 years ago or so. Gives you an idea about AntiZ at the time. And now I want to continue with Edward's winter report about AntiZ at the time of my teacher, MiaUla Roshi. Now we come to the part that is about, well, who my teacher was, what kind of person he was. The part is called Protector of AntiZ. And Edward says in the beginning, while there were powerful figures like Kodo Sawaki and Koro Watanabe and reserved intellectuals like Kosho Chiyama and Muho Nölke, Shinyu MiaUla was in a category of his own. Unlike his predecessor Watanabe, he was neither a visionary nor a charismatic leader, but someone who simply valued the importance of AntiZ above all else. MiaUla never made changes to the original schedule, nor took on major projects like those during Watanabe's time, bar the building of the Zendo. To him, everything was fine just as it was. I'm not quite sure about that, but at least he tried to keep things like they were. He tried to protect the status quo as far as I could see it. But during his abbacy, AntiZ struggled with a shortage of people and Watanabe's criticism began to flood in. This even culminated with the former abbot forcing MiaUla to step down. Well, he didn't succeed in that, but he tried to force him to step down. Not long before his death in 2002. So MiaUla never officially stepped down before his death. As someone who took on the role of AntiZ's protector, this mounting pressure eventually got the better of him. Question, when was MiaUla born? In 1948, and that was in Tokushima, a southern island called Shikoku. Did he have a standard childhood? Maybe for where he grew up, which was in the countryside, it was kind of standard. He was born right after the war and he was the youngest of 7 children. He went to high school, but it was not a high school that would prepare you for university. So he said that in the area where he lived, people hardly knew about what a university was. It never came up as an option. Did he have any interests? Well, in high school he played volleyball. You told me before that he went traveling. What age was he when he started? Around 20. Before that, I think he worked in a cheese factory. But then he went for 4 years traveling all around the world. He took a ride on the Trans-Siberian Railway, went to London first, but then later, well, he was also in Germany and he was in New York for, I think, 6 months. And then through Turkey, Arabia and India went all the way to Australia. And from there he came back to Japan in 1974. In London he lived for 1 year. I don't know exactly what he did there. It was some kind of shady activities that he was supposedly involved in. He wasn't a hardcore hippie or the typical hippie. The typical hippie for me is somebody who is kind of in the peace movement against Vietnam War, maybe with some socialist ideas in their heads and ideas of free love. And most of these hippies, not all of them, but a good amount of them probably went to college and then got infected by these ideas, while MiaUla never went to college. In that respect, he was kind of a working class hero. In that respect, quite untypical. And when he came back to Japan, the story, as he always told it, said when he came back to Japan in 1974, he was 26 years old. He didn't feel like, well, getting into the hamster wheel and working as a salaried person. So he heard that in Zen you would just sit and you had a place to live and there were 3 meals a day, and he said, well, if it's enough to just sit, that's what I'm gonna do. And he heard that, well, if you want to go do Rinzai, go to Ryutokuji in Mishima City in Shizuoka, and if you want to do Soto, then there would be Kyoto AntiZ. And at that time, when he came, it was just when Watanabe Roshi had became the new abbot. And I think for Watanabe, he was an especially valuable person because he was not one of the old Uchiyama Roshi students so forth. He would look up to Watanabe as his teacher. And not only that, he also had this practical education that he got in high school. He learned how to weld and actually work. While most of the other students at AntiZ at the time were intellectuals. Both the Japanese monks usually had college education, and then the Westerners, almost all of them were hippies. And for Watanabe, maybe not so easy to deal with. So I could imagine that especially in the beginning, he treasured MiaUla quite a lot, although later they had a fallout with each other, and Watanabe tried to force MiaUla out at the end, although he didn't succeed. MiaUla said, well, I got Dharma transmission, I'm officially installed here as the abbot, you have no right to tell me to leave. I mean, that's something that I wrote in the What Does It Take to Be a Full-Fledged Soto Monk series. In the West you often hear, not often, but sometimes you hear of Zen masters who give Dharma transmission to their students and later disown them and say, I take the Dharma transmission back. That's something that's not possible in Japanese Zen. If you give somebody Dharma transmission, they are a Zen master in their own right, and there's no way to take it back from them. If they're installed as an abbot, it's almost impossible to get them out. So even the former abbot has no right to tell their student to leave the temple. So when Edward writes in the beginning, he forced him out, that's not literally true. He tried his best, but he didn't succeed. But for my teacher, it must have been a very hard period to be confronted with a situation that the teacher that you trusted and the teacher that trusted you is not trusting you anymore. Especially hard because the teacher often for the student is something like a father figure, so who wants to be disowned by their father. On the other hand, you can take it as a koan, that the teacher who disowns you is trying to help you to walk on your own feet, reminding you that the teacher is not your father. You're grown up. Okay, so much for today from my side. I hope it's gonna be some food for thoughts. See you.